So you want to do a heater core replacement on your 20-plus-year-old Chevy Cavalier. Don't do it. This is ridiculous. So this is where I'm at after a day, probably about a day and a half on and off because of the heat. All the plastics dried out, cracks, completely just disintegrates as soon as you start taking stuff apart. Helping a mechanic friend out of mine get caught up on some work and make a little extra money on the side. And this guy just really is attached to this little Cavalier and wants it fixed, even though it's a salvage title and the airbags are blown. And we found him another Cavalier that we could basically swap engines out of, which I would rather do than replace a heater core on one of these cars. And he didn't want it. $400 car with heat and AC that just needed a motor. And instead he's paying to have the heater core fixed on this. And we already told him the dash is probably not going to go back in. And but in case you're wondering and you decide you want to do it anyways, you have to pull the top dash, the bottom dash, the gauge cluster, the reinforcement bar right here, disconnect your hoses up at the firewall, and that will take you about a day if you're actually somewhat experienced as a mechanic. If you don't know what you're doing, just bypass it and buy a winter coat for the winter. Get a little cigarette space heater, do whatever you gotta do, but this car's not worth fixing. These cars aren't worth fixing. These cars aren't supposed to last this long. These were throwaway cars. Throw them away. Get something else. There's $500 cars all over the place, especially with Craigslist and all the social media stuff you got. So, part it out. Get it to a junkyard. Get $250 for it, or $300 or whatever, and go find one with heat that works.